Hey, Mike, what do Kelly Slater and PT have in common?
I don't know. They're both world champs?
Nope, they both own Endless Summer box set.
Oh my God, rad. You guys, you can get it too. The link's in the show notes. Welcome back, everybody, to the QuiverCast. This is Mike, your host. And please check out my other podcast, The Stinky Booties, I do with my buddy, Billy. Let's roll. Hello, everybody. This is Mike here with the QuiverCast. And our special guest today is an East Coast surfer, photographer, videographer, blogger, Ralph Fatello.
Hey, Mike.
Hey, Ralph. How's it going, man? Thank you for doing this interview.
Great to be here, brother.
Yeah, I'm stoked. I contacted you when I saw your this little documentary you're in that I saw at a film festival, and I was pretty stoked. I'm glad I got a hold of you. I'm glad you said yes, so thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Good to be here.
Okay, so let's start from the beginning. What got you into surfing? And
when I was a young lad, my brother and I were training to be stuntmen in Hollywood. And we lived on the North Shore of Massachusetts, and we were out back on this big dirt hill pretending to get blown up by bombs and what have you. And that was our goal, to be stuntmen. And my dad called me in. He said, Ralphie, you got to see this. And this is 1963, the summer of 63. He called me in the house, and I ran into the den, and on a little black and white TV, there was surfing. I'm like, what's this? He said, they're surfing. I'm like, surfing? I had never seen it before. And I was just...
Really?
Well, 1963 in Beverly, Massachusetts, it wasn't something that we were aware of, So I just remember staring at that TV and going, well, where is this? He said, oh, they're probably in California or Hawaii. I said, we got to move there. We got to go there. He said, we're not going there, freaking idiot. No, we're not going there. And so, but I was obsessed. I saw this, and it was in black and white, film, guys, riding the nose and doing all the stuff, longboarding. But I was obsessed with it until, that whole summer, I begging my dad, let's go to Hawaii. Let's go to California. And then one day we were at the beach, and there must have been a tropical storm or something. This is at Nahant now, where there's surf. And it was probably about a 3 to 5 foot swell running. It was glassy. I'll never forget it. The waves are kind of peeling off this point and just coming in. And my dad looked at me and said, if you had a surfboard, you could surf on those waves. And I looked at the waves, and it dawned on me. I made the connection with the TV show. I'm like, he's right. And so I spent the next year with a paper route trying to raise enough money to buy a surfboard. And in the interim, February 9th of 1964, the Beatles hit Ed Sullivan's show. And I said to my dad, we don't have to move to Hawaii or California anymore. I just need a guitar, So, and I got my first guitar and my first surfboard the summer of 1964. And there was no looking back from that point on.
That's rad. So you wanted to be a rock star surfer?
Yeah.
Is that your goal? Or
that was it. and that was basically what I ended up doing. I started a band that summer, and I went surfing. And I just, I was playing music and surfing from the 60s to, the present time. So, yeah. And, I covered a lot of ground in the music world and in the surf world as well. So, yes, that's exactly what I did.
Okay, so let's just stay in that period of time. What about the Beach Boys and stuff like that? Were you familiar with that music?
If you ask any real surfer, I'm talking about a real hardcore surfer, what music is considered like surf music. Beach Boys are not there, brother. They're way down. They're way down, we listen to like Hendrix, Dick Dale, I listened to the Ventures. The Ventures were like happening. That was, to me, that was surf music. But the Beach Boys, that just opened the floodgates, man, you know? And Dennis Wilson was the only one that surfed. The rest of those freaking guys were kooks, you know, singing about girls and surfing. None of them surf except for Dennis. It's true.
Okay.
But
what year? Well, the reason I was asking about the Beach Boys in particular because they sang about surfing in Southern California.
Yeah.
Did that help inspire you to want to surf?
No, I was already surfing. Those guys, like I said, those guys would. That was the commercialization of surfing, Gidget boys, and that just opened up the floodgates. But let me just say this: whatever was happening in California in the '60s, we would mirror on the East Coast. Whatever was happening, whether it was the longboarding, the shortboard era, the skateboarding, whatever you guys were doing, we would just copy it. And sometimes in some cases we were right alongside you, So
I have a question
out here in New England,
Okay, so you're in New England, and let's say you surfed for a couple of years. Let's say 65, 66. How did you know what was going on in Southern California at that time? You being a young kid,
surfer.
Okay.
Surfer and surfing. Okay. That was our. There was no. Cell phones. There was no internet. There was no, surf reports. There was nothing. We had to wait for that magazine to show up at our doorstep to know what the hell was going on. And by that point, it was already, yesterday's news. Same with surf movies. It's not like today. These kids don't have no idea how lucky they are to be able to just pick up their telephone and watch a surf video. For us, we had to wait till somebody came into town with a projector and a movie screen, and we got to see a movie, maybe one or two movies every summer. It was, it was archaic. It was primitive, but,
Okay, so guys like Bruce Brown and some of the other movie makers, they would do these tours with the movie. Were they coming to the East Coast to your house?
Well, yeah, they did. They would.
Oh, they were.
So, like, Hampton, New Hampshire, and Southern Maine was the mecca of, to be honest with you, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and Maine. So New England, it was the mecca of the surf scene back then. So yeah, they would come. I saw the Endless Summer in 1966, But that was in the movie theaters. It had already been released, and it was in the movie theaters. But there were other movies that came out that were on the big 16 millimeter reel-to-reels, and we'd go to whatever building was going to have the movie, and we'd all just it was a great time for young surfers to be able to see what was happening in the rest of the world, because we're pretty isolated, Mike, in New England.
Yeah. How many guys were surfing with you? Was it like a tight-knit crew, or was it like everyone surfed?
During that whole Beach Boys, everybody's gone surfing, that craze hit here pretty hard. But they were only summer surfers. Once the fall rolled in and winter rolled in, it was only those that really wanted to keep surfing that kept surfing. So that whole Beach Boys, everybody's gone surfing craze, it was, it kind of ebbed and flowed as far as the popularity of surfing. And we just the real hardcore surfers, we just stayed with it. We got our winter wetsuits. They didn't have wetsuits for surfers back then. And the wetsuits that we wore were divers suits. So they were like, 6 mil, with a jacket and a beaver tail that you had to hook up, and it was like so ridiculous. I think back on it now, it's just like, it's amazing that some of us didn't drown or just get killed out there, but.
Yeah. Okay. What was your first, do you remember what year was your first winter surfing all winter?
My first year surfing all winter was in 65.
Okay.
65.
And how was that a shocker, or what was it? How'd it feel?
Well,
colder than you thought?
Again, I'm a New Englander, so I'm used to the winters. We went outside and played in the snow. It wasn't like, it snowed and we just hunkered down in the bunker. Baby, we were outside, We were outside dealing with the elements. So once we got into surf, I remember telling my mother, You know, she's like, you're not going to go surfing in the snowstorm. I'm like, Ma, you have no idea. I said, you didn't realize, Ma, that if I have a cold, the cold ocean will just wash the cold right out of me. I'll be as good as new. And she bought that hook, line, and sinker. But there might have been some truth to it, though. But, you know, again, we didn't have surfing wetsuits. We had divers suits. So when you paddled out in the dead of a snowstorm, 1965, you were lucky if the suit fit you, or B, that the beaver tail and the pants connected okay, and that you had boots and gloves that were okay, and then you had a hood. Everything was separate. The hood was separate, you know, nothing was connected. Yeah. So it was like, you know, we would probably lasted an hour at tops out there, you know, and again, no leashes. So you're paddling out on an old 9-foot longboard that weighed 50 pounds. You get hit by a set and you're knee paddling. You lose the board. You swim in. You get the board. Go back out again. Maybe get halfway out. Another set hits you. You swim in again. You know, you do that 3 or 4 times, and you're brain dead. You know, I could have been a freaking genius because cold water kills brain cells.
Okay, you're paddling out. Let's say it's mid-December. Who's paddling out with you? How many guys or gals?
There was no women surfers back then. None.
None.
So there was a handful of us. Well, there was a handful of us, and you know, we all kind of learned and went through the same trial and error of what works, what doesn't work, and then so there was a time I almost drowned once. The day after Christmas in 1967, I almost drowned. I lost my board on a big 6-foot day at the Wall in Hampton, and I lost my board and had to swim in 300 yards, and it was like, freezing, beyond freezing cold, Arctic, it was like in the teens, stiff offshore winds, and just like, and I'm swimming and water's going down my neck. I'm just taking on water like a freaking, the Titanic, in my wetsuit, and almost got to the shore. And a friend of mine jumped in and saved me. That was the same day that a guy from California pulled up at the Wall in Hampton, New Hampshire, driving a hearse. And on the top of that hearse was an 8'3" harbor rapier. And that's when everything changed for me. That was my first. I met that guy. I ended up becoming friends with him. He was a hippie with the long hair and the big pirate boots on, and he was far out. I had no idea there was surf here on the East Coast. Long story short, I bought that board. That was my first short board. And then my same friends that I had been surfing with we started our own little surf club, and we started shaping and building our own boards. This is in 1967 and in New England.
Okay, let's talk about your first board. Where'd you get it? What was it?
My very first surfboard was a rental board that we got from New England divers. Again, there were no surf shops, so
right.
Everything we got, we had to seek out and find out, all right, where can we get this? Then one of the dive shops were renting a surfboard from that same craze the summer before with the Beach Boys. Everybody's gone surfing. And, they were renting pop-outs, Keokis, the old pop-out Keokis. And then I ended up getting I bought a board that was 8'3". And it must have been, looking back on it now, the 8'3" Keokis in 65 were made for women. But as a young 13-year-old, that board was perfect for me. That was my magic board. And I ended up, my friends, those same guys that I was surfing with, saying, you need a bigger board, man. You need a 9'6". I'm like, really? Because I'm having fun on this thing. No, man, that board's way too small. You need a bigger board. And in hindsight, I wanted to freaking kill him because I was having a blast on that board. I ended up getting rid of that board, and I got a 9'6" Roy Hawaiian that was like an ironing board. It had 0 rocker, and the board was constantly purling. It was just a terrible surfboard. And, one thing led to another. And it wasn't until I got that harbor rapier when I was saved and felt, okay, it's like, getting that first board where you could turn And, things were, the whole longboard transitioning from the longboard to the shortboards was happening. So, we were all in from that point on.
All right, couple questions. Who was that guy, the hippie guy? Did he hang around?
I don't know who he was. He had long hair and he was driving a hearse, where you put dead bodies in, and yeah, it was the crazy.
It's really the perfect surfmobile.
It was a great surfmobile. It was like, you can't make this stuff up. I just remember looking and going, oh my God, It was the day that I almost drowned. So here I am laying on the beach, puking my guts out, and the guy shows up in a hearse with an 8'3" harbor rapier. The harbor rapier saved my life.
That's awesome. Okay, so how did that board work, and how long did you have it for?
I had that board. I still have the board today. I kept that board.
That thing's worth a fortune, I'm sure.
I rode the board from that point, 67 right through 68, and it was a great board. It didn't have. I mean, looking back on it now, probably, it was considered a shortboard at the time, the harbor rapier.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, I mean, that board was great for me. I had some wonderful, time surfing on that, and I surfed right up until 1968, and then the war happened, and everybody was getting drafted, and I was, getting ready, that of the age, I was 16, 17 years old, 17 years old. I ended up enlisted in the Marine Corps and shipped out to Vietnam and came back. I went to Vietnam in 1969, 1970, and came home and picked up where I left off in 1971. So
all right,
it was full on shortboardable. So everything was, the harbor rapier became like a longboard at that point, so we were all riding shortboards.
All right, a couple questions.
Yeah.
So before you got drafted, right?
No,
or did you volunteered?
Okay. I volunteered.
You enlisted?
Okay, that's good. But we'll talk about that in a second. But how did you those I don't know 5-6 years of surfing? How did you treat outsiders that were coming to join for the summer guys and gals?
Back then.
Yeah, back then.
Back then, it was open arms. I mean, back then, okay. Try to visualize this, you surfers today. Imagine driving by a surfer and getting so excited that you saw another surfer. You're throwing the window down, waving at each other like you're like long lost brothers. Oh my God, a surfer, another surfer. How wonderful is this? It's such a beautiful world, So everybody was like, freaked out to see other surfers because there wasn't that many of us. There was just we were like this hardcore group of young teens surfing, shucking aside the typical football, hockey, and baseball and basketball. The hell with that, man. We were going surfing,
Okay.
If you saw another surfer, we welcomed them with open arms.
Okay, so I got a couple questions then. Okay.
Yeah.
How are the jocks? How'd they treat you? Did they like you on the East? Because you guys were anomalies. There's no one else doing this. Very few.
No, they didn't know. They couldn't understand it. They were like, Neanderthals. What? Surfing? There's surf out here? You dumbass. And I look at walk down there. I can't tell you how many times, even to this day, that people who live here, I'll show them a picture of the surf down the street and they go, where's this? I go, it's right down the street. No. I'm like, yes. Open your eyes, jackass. Get down there and check it out, The surf here. But the jocks were not, we were like outsiders. We were like Hell's Angels,
Okay.
We were like bikers.
Okay.
You related to the bikers more than the athletes, the jocks.
Pretty much. The jocks just didn't get it. And when I was friends with some of the jocks, and when you tried to take them surfing, they tried to use the brawn and the muscle. And as you know, it's not about that.
Doesn't work.
It don't work, brother. You're not going to tackle the waves. Mother Ocean's going to kick your football ass every single time.
Okay. So how far away from the beach did you live as a kid, as a Grom?
We were just a couple miles. I always lived near the ocean, so I was close enough that even when I was a kid, a toddler, we walked to the beach, So we were always, I was always around the ocean. It's just by luck of where my dad built a house, and my dad was a World War II vet. Him and his brothers, they all built their homes, and we were always within walking distance of the ocean, always.
Okay, so was it a tourist? Describe the town. How was it? Like a sleepy town? Was it a tourist town?
In the summers in New England, man, it turns into, it is exactly that. People love coming up here in the summers, and it's really, there's a big tourist attraction. But again, that window is very short, brother. It's a short window, June, July, August, and then September rolls around and things start getting chilly and people roll up the, roll up the windows and the tourists go back to wherever they came from. And it's just us. So, but yeah, in the summer, it's definitely a touristy attraction in New England. No doubt.
Okay. And then as you guys were like in high school, before you joined the Marines and all that, were you guys just surfing local, like just in your little area, or were you going up and down the coast a little bit?
Well,
like
again,
traveling?
I've had so many friends from California. When I tell them I live in Hampton, New Hampshire, and they look at the map and they see that New Hampshire is only 17 miles of coastline, and I'm always reminding them it's not New Hampshire, it's New England, because I can walk down the street and look to my right and see Massachusetts, and look to my left and see Maine, and there's great surf in Maine, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island. It's New England. So we just surfed in New England. However, I will say that me and my two friends, those same two friends that I started surfing with in the early days, we were the first Americans to surf in Nova Scotia the summer of 1971. That, my friend, that was our endless summer.
That's for sure.
That's for sure.
All right, on.
The summer of 71. Me, Jeff Crawford, not the Jeff Crawford that surfed Pipeline, the Jeff Crawford that I grew up with, and Don Brez Bowden was a California transplant. We discovered Nova Scotia in 1967 on a high school assignment in the Beverly Public Library when my friend Jeff was looking at some geography magazine, and there was a photo of Nova Scotia. And in that black and white photo were these perfect waves peeling off this point break with this big bluff. It looked like the Hollister Ranch, I swear, on a stack of Bibles, on the souls of my children, Mike. It looked like the Hollister Ranch. And we were like, Nova Scotia, where's that? And we looked at the map like, shit, it's right there. It's right there. As the crow flies, you look at New England and look where Nova Scotia is. And so we all made a plan. We're going to go to Nova Scotia. And I'm like, but I'm going in the Marines, man. I'm going to go to Vietnam. You got to wait till I get back. And they're like, so they did, because they were true friends. They waited until I come back. I get back from Vietnam, and we went to Nova Scotia in 1971. And that was our Bruce Brown endless summer trip. And those waves, there was a break up there called the Range. And it was exactly that. It was like a mirror of the ranch, the range and the ranch. We were like living this cool, like little surf trip dream. It was unreal. And back then, there were two surfers in all of Nova Scotia. Two. One guy from Australia and one local guy. And that
okay. So let's talk.
Still there. Now it's from what I hear, it's gotten really crowded up there.
Let's talk about that trip. Did you guys drive? Let's start from the beginning, like condensed version, but a nice.
We drove from the North Shore of Massachusetts to Yarmouth, Maine, to Portland, Maine, and then we took a ferry from Portland, Maine to Yarmouth, Nova Scotia. Once we landed in Nova Scotia, we just hit it up to Halifax. We had a pretty good idea where we were going because of the discovery in '67. So we had a pretty good idea where we were going. And we just, went to Halifax, went to Lawrencetown, and the rest, as they say, is history. There were so many perfect breaks from Lawrencetown to 20 miles north. Wherever you would drive, you could just be driving along and seeing break after break after break, perfect break after perfect break. And we named so many of the spots because they were no names. That's the beauty of being a surfer and surfing a virgin break. You get to name that break. So we named most of the breaks up there. We went there, I'm going to guess around 12 times. 12 times before the word got out.
And then how did the word get out? And then what time of year is this you're going?
We'd always go in late summer, so like hurricane season, tropical storm and hurricane season. And with the Labrador currents, the water temps were incredibly warm. I mean, the Labrador currents would zip up there, and it was so warm in late August, early September, and those were the perfect months up there. We kept it a secret for 12 months, and then one of my friends, I was making movies back then, so I was shooting movies, Super 8, 16 millimeter, and making these reel-to-reel movies, and we would show them to our friends, and one of my friends opened his mouth and told one of his friends who happened to work at the magazine, and the magazine guys came to my house. They wanted to see the movie. I'm like, no, man, I'm not showing you that. I'm like, no, I'm not showing you that. I'm not gonna be the guy that blow that place up. And my friend who told the magazine was trying to get in on this excursion from when they went there. When Surfer Magazine went to Nova Scotia, my friend was trying to get on that trip, and he never made that trip. They took a pro surfer, Wes Lane, went instead of my buddy, and so they blew up Nova Scotia all for nothing because my friend was trying to get exposure and surfing there, and it never happened. But it did blow it up, and that was the end of that. Once the magazine exposed it. You know how that works, Mike. You've seen it enough times yourself,
So what year is that? What year did Wes Lane go up there?
I want to
you remember?
say in the early 80s,
Okay.
80, I'm guessing 80. I mean, we could Google it and find out, but I know that Wes Lane went in place of my friend, and he got all the coverage. And
Is that a young Wes Lane? That's a young Wes Lane.
Oh, yeah. But I remember saying to the editor of the mag who was there, and I said, if you expose Nova Scotia, I will hunt you down and kill you.
You remember the guy's name? Who was the editor?
Yeah, I do, but I'm not going to say it now. But we were so, think about it. Imagine if you had discovered the Hollister Ranch, and and nobody else in California knew about it, and that you discovered the ranch. Would you tell the freaking magazine about the ranch, Mike?
Well, now, okay. So then my question is, why were you shooting video then, or footage?
I told you, because for ourselves. I wasn't.
Oh, just for yourselves.
Yeah, it was for us. We would go.
Okay.
And we'd go back and get the beers and roll a couple of doobies and sit around and watch these movies of us surfing perfect waves. It was all for us. It was our little trip, and it wasn't for the I don't know. There's no such thing as a secret anymore. I mean, every time there's some spot that's discovered, it just gets blown up, and that's that. And then
there's Google Earth now, so there is no.
Yeah, secrets. But for 12 years, we kept that a secret, man. That's
good.
Secret, Anyway.
What about the Australian guy and the other guy? Did you make friends with those guys?
I'm in touch with the Australian guy. He's still up there.
Oh, rad.
So I went back. We went back year after year after year, and then we, the word gets out. I mean, the word would trickle out, and then, like anything else, once the word gets out, and someone, you tell someone, this is a secret, man. Don't tell anybody. When just by virtue of saying that, you've already tempted them.
That's right.
The temptation. Don't tell anybody. Oh, okay. Don't tell anybody. I won't. You lying sack of shit,
So what happens on the days you guys got a car or something on the East Coast and it's blown out at home? Are you driving a little bit, an hour north or south, looking for better waves?
Oh, yeah. We've got places that take, all different swell directions all different wind directions. You just got to know. You just got to know where to go.
Okay.
And
how'd you figure that out before Surfline?
We've actually discovered new spots as recently as the late 90s up here.
Okay. How were you finding swell before Surfline? Besides just showing up on the beach and seeing which way the waves are coming, and that's heading up there? Or?
I got the Ralph cam. I drive down the street and look at it, I mean, there are ways, we had weather, marine forecast radios, and we could pick up swells that way. We'd just go and just see the Boston Globe would print these, maps, these little weather maps. And we knew what a low pressure was, and we knew enough about that, whenever we heard the word nor'easter, those are our hurricanes. The nor'easter is our hurricane. So whenever any of the surfers heard, oh, there's a nor'easter forming, bam, we were on it. We'd watch it all develop. Typical, it's hard for you to comprehend this, but west winds are our direct offshore for us.
Oh, yeah.
West winds, And so we get a nor'easter, the wind would howl out of the northeast and create that swell, and then the winds would come out of the west and just clean it up. So, once we, heard the magic word nor'easter, it's funny because later on in life, I actually named one of my bands the Nor'easters for that exact reason, because of...
Okay, so then you're like 17, you joined the Marines. What made you want to do that?
I was, my dad was a World War II veteran. All my uncles were World War II veterans. And back then, they were drafting guys left and right, man. 1968, you were going. And the only way out was to go to college or go to Canada. And I'm from a family of 6. And so my parents couldn't afford to send me to college. And I wasn't going to Canada. Though in hindsight, if I had known about Nova Scotia, I might have, considered that one. But so I enlisted. But the truth is, here's a funny story, if you want to consider this.
Yeah.
My recruiter, my Marine Corps recruiter, I'm an artist. I grew up drawing pictures. I'm a bona fide actual artist. So I grew up drawing, illustrating, painting, and all that stuff. And my recruiter says to my parents, he can be a combat artist. He could join the Marines and be a combat artist. He'd be back in the rear with the gear, drawing pictures. And so my parents had to sign for me because I was only 17. Long story short, when I got to boot camp, Parris Island, I was like starving all the time. I was like hungry, constantly hungry, And the drill instructors have this other drill instructor who's in charge of them. Anyways, long story short, I was doing physical training, PT, when this series gunnery sergeant who's in charge of the DIs walked up and saw me, and he told me to come over to him, and we started talking. He started calling me Jimmy Durante. Now, a lot of you young listeners wouldn't know who Jimmy Durante is, but he was a comic back in the 1940s that had a big nose, and my nose is, I'm Italian. I got a big nose, my head shaved. So he starts calling me Jimmy Durante. And a long story short, it turns out he's from, when someone asks you when you're in the military, where are you from? You don't tell them you're from Beverly, Mass. You pick the biggest city. I'm from Boston. Oh, so you say, if you're from California, you say I'm from LA or the San Diego area. I'm from Boston. It turns out the series gunnery sergeant was from Boston. So he heard that and he heard me say Boston, and he took a liking to me, and he just ended up, whenever he'd come down to check on the platoons and see me doing PT, he'd call me Jimmy, come over here, Anyways, he took a liking to me. I became his house mouse. The mouse is the guy that goes and wakes him up, gets him coffee, gets him cigarettes, and all that stuff. But again, Mike, I'm always hungry down there. I'm starving because I come from a large Italian family, right? I'm always hungry. Starving constantly, So anyways, I'm getting Gunny Muldowney his cigarettes, his coffee, and then we go to the rifle range. And for 2 weeks, I don't see Muldowney anywhere because he's back on the base and we're up on the rifle range. Now on the rifle range, we're training with the M14, but I don't give a shit about that because I'm going to be a what? A combat artist. I'm not going to be shooting a rifle. I'm going to be drawing pictures. So I could give a shit about the windage and the dopage and the elevation on my M14. I don't care about that. I'm going to be drawing pictures. So we do a week of snapping in, what they call snapping in on the targets. And then we do a week of actually shooting your weapon, your M14. So I'm shooting, but, and there's 4 ways you can go. You can go UNC, which means you're unqualified, or you can go marksman or sharpshooter or rifle expert. All those, I'm like shooting during the week and I'm getting like marksman. And then you come up to the night before we're going to qualify the next day, Friday. So Friday morning we show up at the range and everybody's all, getting ready to find out what they're going to be. And so I'm getting ready to get on the firing line. I look down and there on the bench is a meatball sub, a steaming hot meatball sub. And I went into like a freaking trance. I was like standing there and then I hear, Jesus Christ, Jimmy, you want that meatball sub? And it was Gunny Muldowney had come up to the rifle range on qualification day. And I'm like, no, sir. The private doesn't want that. He said, bullshit, Jimmy. Your eyes are bugging out of your head. You want that meatball sub? I said, no, sir. The private, there was the private this, the private that. The private doesn't want it, sir. The sub belonged to one of the rifle coaches, a corporal. So Gunny Muldowney goes over, grabs the sub, sticks it in the crook of his arm and says, Jimmy, you shoot expert today, and this sub is yours. I'm like, and I'm looking around all the other DIs because he outranks everybody. I'm like, what? He said, you heard me, Jimmy. You shoot expert, and this meatball sub is yours. So I'm like, damn. So I get up on the 200-yard line in the offhand position, standing position. I start squeezing off round after round, going back to the 300-yard line in the kneeling position. I'm squeezing those bullseyes, only they're not bullseyes, Mike. They're meatballs to me. I'm squeezing up, hitting meatballs back on the 400-yard line in the sitting position, and then back on the 500-yard line, 500 yards in the prone position. I'm in the freaking zone. I can smell that sub. Gunny Muldowney holding that sub. I'm like in the freaking zone. I'm squeezing up round after round. Every freaking meatball I see, bam, bam. Now there's a buzz on the rifle range. Some private from platoon 2030 is shooting the eyes off of those targets. Well, long story short, I didn't just shoot expert, Mike. I outshot everybody in the platoon, everyone in the company, everyone in the battalion, and I got the high shooter award. But Muldowney took that sub and gave it to me, and before that rifle coach could say another word, I inhaled that thing. I inhaled that sub in front of everybody. Now, here's where the story gets crazy. 3 days later, we're back on the base again, and we're finding out about our MOSs. An MOS is military occupation specialty. That's what you find out what you're going to be in the Marine Corps. So military occupation, the MOSs, the DIs are walking down the squad bay in the barracks, and they're going up and down the squad bay, and they get to the first kid. Abbott, 0311. 0311, Mike, is infantry. That's a grunt.
Okay.
Rifleman. That's an 0311. Yeah. You're a rifleman. Abbott, 0311. You might live 3 weeks. And then Brown, 0311. You might live 2 weeks too. You're a pretty good shot. And then going down and everybody's 0311, 0331, 0331 is machine gunner, and 0311 is rifleman. And they're coming up to me. Now I'm ready to hear that elaborate whatever it is, but I know it's not 0311. I know it's not 0331. It's got to be something magical, Mike. It's got to be some elaborate number and series of numbers and letters, maybe even a few letters for a combat artist. And they stop in front of me. Fatello. I'm standing there like in attention, looking at him. Yes, 0311, but you're a good shot. You may actually live 3 weeks. And I stepped out of formation. No, there's a mistake. And they actually physically punched me, hit me back. No, I'm supposed to be in combat arts. They go, we don't want you drawing pictures when you can shoot like that, you idiot. Well, my first 3 months in Vietnam, I kept saying, I'm not supposed to be here. I'm supposed to be back in the rear with the gear drawing pictures. And so all the guys in my platoon, of course, Yeah, we're not supposed to be here either, man. Hey, can you draw a hot rod or draw my girlfriend on my helmet? So the only drawing I ever did was on my friends' helmets. And that's a true story,
that's
man.
Cool, though.
I almost got killed over a goddamn meatball sub, Mike.
Was it worth it? It was, though, right?
Looking back on it, believe it or not, I am an artist to this day. I'm a musician and an artist, but there's something about that. There's something about being that grunt with those guys, with those kids, and doing what we did. There's some strange allure of just, you know what, man? It was an experience that you can't get anywhere. You can't, I ended up, I got back, I ended up going to art school and started bands and played music. But, being that grunt, 18 years old in combat, it's a trip, man. It's like something that you just don't forget. It just stays with you. And so there's that strange pride. Well, you live near Pendleton. You see those Marines all the time. You know how crazy they are, Yeah.
Okay, so what were you thinking in Vietnam? Were you thinking just got to get through this? Like, what was your thought process?
So you can go surf again?
Well, here's the deal. So in my platoon, there were 3 surfers.
Really?
3 surfers. Me from New England. There was Hood from Florida and Tavalacci from California. He surfed. He always had this photo of Moss Landing. You know what Moss Landing is?
Yep, like Santa Cruz.
Yeah, so he had this picture of Moss Landing. So, we'd always whenever we'd stop we'd be on a hump, humping up and down those mountains and up and down the rice, across the rice paddies, up and down those freaking hills. Whenever we'd stop, my mother would send me Surfer magazine. So I always had a Surfer magazine in my backpack. I'd stop and pull out the mag and go, "Hey man, check this out." We'd be sitting down there in the jungle looking at pictures. And I remember all the brothers like, "Man, you guys are crazy about that shit, huh? You guys are really into." Yeah. So the 3 surfers, the 3 of us made a pact. We made a pact. We're going to get back to the world. We called it the world. The United States, we called it the world. We're going to get back to the world, and we're all going to go surfing together, man. We're going to do this. We're going to get through this shit and get back to the world and go surfing together. And all 3 of us made it back. But the sad part is I never looked up those guys ever again. I never saw them again, never heard from them again. I came back and I just, like most of us, we just went dark. We just, just closed up and went dark,
Okay, so real quick though, so you never got to surf with them?
Never got to surf with them. We just talked about it, but we never did it,
Yeah. Okay, so you're you said you're in a dark spot in your home, right? How did surfing? Did you go right into surfing, or
saved my life? Surfing saved my life because I was in a very dark place, and you came back. I mean, think about it. 1970. You did not come home and say, not like today, "Hey, thank you for your service. Hey, brother, thank you for your service." It was like you did not tell anyone that you were a veteran, and you certainly didn't tell anyone you were in Vietnam. Not in 1970, not in 1971, not in 1973, not in 1974, not in 1975. And when the fall of Saigon happened, we all just went darker. We just went underground. So you had to just suck it up. If it wasn't for surfing, we wouldn't be having this interview right now. We would not be talking right now.
So you went inside. So explain, did you talk to your dad about it since he was in World War II, or what?
The World War II guys
could not alter yourself.
They could not relate to us, and for them, it was like they're like the victorious Johnny comes marching home, big parades, and it was World War II was like the greatest generation. You won. You beat the Nazi Germany and the Imperial Japan. That wasn't the case with us. You saw the fall of Saigon, and the war ended terribly. And not to draw parallels, but what happened last August when the fall of Kabul in Afghanistan, all the Vietnam vets that I know, we all went dark again. It was like it just dredged up all those feelings again of watching the fall of Saigon, those helicopters landing on the embassy, and then watching the helicopters landing on the embassy in Afghanistan. It's like, man, when are we ever going to learn? Anyways, surfing saved my life. If it wasn't for surfing, I wouldn't have made it. I ended up becoming best friends with this Vietnam vet. 1972, I went to the wall one day to check the surf. And again, you didn't talk about Vietnam. You didn't talk. Yeah, it wasn't like I was walking around, I'm a Vietnam veteran, I'm a Marine. There was none of that. You just went dark. You just kept your mouth shut. And when I went to art school, it was like, all the hippies, at the art school, I was playing music, but there was like 5 Vietnam vets in my class. And we went to a party one night, and all the, it was the hippies, everybody had long hair. We come back from Nam, our hair's short, so we stick out like a sore thumb. And we're at a party once, and these 2 hippies walked up to the 5 of us and said, "Hey man, would you guys do us a favor, and would you mind leaving the party?" And we're like, "What?" Like, "Would you mind leaving the party? You guys are bringing us down." I said, "We're bringing you down? we're bringing you down?" We burst into laughter, and we left. And I remember going to the Boston Common. They had a big protest against the war, and we were going just to pick up girls. We were like, we were young guys, young surfers, young artists. I'm going to pick up girls. And I remember standing there with my two of my Vietnam buddies and 2 of the other classmen, and these kids go running by us, and they're carrying a Viet Cong flag. And they go running by us with this Viet Cong flag, and I'm like, man, I'm out of here. Like, so we just left. I couldn't be around that. It was so foreign to them. They have no idea that flag, the guys that carrying that flag in Vietnam were killing my friends. Anyways, I ended up becoming good friends with this friend of mine, Joe. He was a Vietnam vet. I saw the tattoo on his leg. We were checking the surf one day, and we became the best of friends. And we would talk about Nam when we were together. But the second any of the other kids showed up, the other surfers who weren't veterans, we just clam up. You just didn't talk about it. He ended up dying, Mike, in 1978, Agent Orange. He was in Special Forces. Wow. He was in places where they sprayed the shit out of it, and it killed him. 28 years old, great surfer. He named a lot of the breaks that we surf down here. Yep.
Oh, wow. Is he from there too, or did he move up there?
He was from New Jersey, but he moved to New Hampshire. But we just connected, and he and I were like the best,
Wow, that sucks. Sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
Sorry to hear that. All right. Well, so yeah, you had a full life, and we're just starting to kind of. So now you're in art school and stuff. How did that go? How does that translate? Does that work with surfing? Is that why you wanted to be an artist?
I always wanted to be an artist. I am an artist, so art school was great for me. And I also, at that time, I lived in town in Boston, and I started some bands. And around that same period the whole music scene was really starting to come to life. So I had started a band, played throughout Boston and the whole college circuit. So being in art school and playing music and then surfing, I was living the dream, man. I was like living exactly the way I had hoped it would be, I just had to carry that baggage around with the war with me. I still, to this day, there are times, like I said, last August when the fall of Afghanistan, I was living the dream. I was, surfing, playing music, and doing the art thing, I ended up, I graduated in 1974, and I moved to Hampton. I got a job at an advertising agency as an illustrator, started my life. Just dug in, and I've been here ever since.
One more question. How was that first session after coming back from war? Do you remember it or no?
You know what? I remember my friends that we went to Nova Scotia with, but because they had been writing to me constantly, so when I was in Nam, they would write to me, and, I'd write back, and we were talking about surfing. So they knew when I got back in January. So my first session wasn't going to be in freaking January. I can tell you that right now.
Okay, fair enough.
Warm up a little bit. I'll tell you a quick little story, a funny story. When I was in Vietnam, my dad wrote to me every single day. Every week.
Oh,
I mean,
cool.
he wrote to me every week. And so
That's
we're on
right.
top of this hill, and I get a letter from home, and we're on top of this hill. We were up near the DMZ in Vietnam, and I opened the letter, and a dead bee fell out of the letter, falls down. I'm like, what the?
Wow.
What the? What? I'm thinking, how the hell did that happen? You know, I mean, how did a dead yellow jacket, a bee, end up in a letter? So I'm reading the letter, and it's like, Dear Ralph, this bee stung me on the beach in Rockport, Mass, and I wanted him to be buried as far away as possible. And if there's any way you can bury him out there. So I start laughing, and all the guys in my squad are laughing, and the skipper, the captain, he's like, what's going on? I said, Skipper, you got to see this, man. So he sees the letter and the bee. He's like, let's do it. And we had my whole squad up there with our M16s doing a 21-gun salute for a dead bee that my dad sent me.
Oh, that's cool. That's right.
I mentioned that at his funeral when I read his eulogy. People just cracked up over that one.
Yeah, that's a funny story. Now, where are we at now? Let's say the 80s. What are you doing in the 80s? Are you having a full-time job? Or are you?
I was working full time. I was working full time at the agency, playing music. I really tried to make a run at the music scene.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm a guitar player. I grew up playing the guitar. My band at the time, we opened for the Police. You've heard of the Police?
That's rad.
All right, so
Yeah,
Police, their very first show in America was at the Rat in Boston in Kenmore Square, October 26th, 1978, and my band opened up for them.
Oh, that's so rad.
Yeah. Sting, the lead singer,
Yep.
Sting. And so after we did it, they did their sound check, and then we did our sound check. And then after my sound check, he walks up to me and says, "Hey man, you know any good places to get a bite to eat?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll take you to a spot." So we're in Kenmore Square in Boston, and right next to the Rat, the club that we played at, was a Dunkin' Donuts. You guys have Dunkin' Donuts out there?
Just coming here. Just coming. Yeah.
So Dunkin' Donuts, I took Sting from the Police to Dunkin' Donuts.
That's so funny.
Yeah. And so I ended up playing with a lot of big bands back then. I opened up for a lot of bands. The last band we opened up for, their first show in Boston, and that was the Red Hot Chili Peppers. For the Red Hot Chili Peppers. And then I started another band called Semper Fi, which is the Marine motto, as you remember.
Yep.
My first band was called the Vinny Band, Vinny, the Vinny Band. I was calling ourselves Italian rock and roll, you know, and I had songs like, you know, Don't Mess with the Family, you know, Stick to My Stiletto, all kinds of crazy. If I had my way, I'd stab you in the back. And it was all these crazy, like, punk rock songs.
Oh, was it a punk band?
Yeah, we were a punk band, you know. It's so
right.
funny because,
That's super
I mean, if you think about it, 1977, I was only 7 years from being in combat. So all these punks, you know, I've got an attitude, and for a good reason. But, you know.
Yeah.
So the Vinny Band was like a punk rock band. Semper Fi was kind of a mainstream kind of arena rock. And we played a lot of shows. I played in front of 25,000 people in the Meadowlands, opening up for Emerson, Lake and Palmer.
That's rad.
For 1986, I met my wife, my future wife, at a show in Boston. It was a Christmas show, and I was going to play the little drummer boy like Hendrix. So Hendrix is my guy, you know. Really, if I was going to pick a guitar player who I'm the most influenced by, it's Jimi Hendrix. My style is like Hendrix. So I did a version of the little drummer boy. That's how I met my wife.
Oh, rad.
You know, my wife, I'm 10 years older than my wife. I came back from Vietnam. I was 19. My kids are funny. Like, you know, I got 3 kids, 2 girls and a boy. And they're like, Dad, when you came back from Vietnam, did you date Mom? I'm like, no, that would have been against the law. She would have been 9 years old, you know? So, but my wife was at the show that I played that Christmas, the little drummer boy, like Hendrix. That's how we met, and we ended up going out, and the rest is history. We've been married 35 years, 3 kids.
Oh, congratulations.
4 grandkids.
That's rad. Congratulations. 35 years is a long time. Good for you guys. How does the family put up with surfing?
My wife is a saint, or either that or she's just, you know, stone cold deaf or something. I don't, people are always saying, how do you deal with this guy, And like, she gets it. She gets the whole music thing.
Okay.
She gets the surf thing. She gets the whole everything. It just worked. And, and I had a rule with my kids when we were growing up. And it's like, if you live in my house, you got to surf. Those are the rules. You got to surf. My youngest daughter, she's like, I'm not going to surf. I'm going to ride a boogie board. I said, that's surfing. I said, it's not surfing. I said, surfing. You're riding a wave. I said, it's not surfing. I said, look, you want to live here or not? You want to live here or not? That's surfing. So my son's a great surfer. He's one of the best around and up here in New Hampshire. So yeah, it's been great. My wife's into it. She goes down and she's my first date with my wife, Mike. Listen to this.
All right.
1984, January 1984. There's 2 feet of snow on the ground.
Okay.
The surf is rocking. I mean, it's 6 to 8 foot and it is just rocking. Snow, 2 foot of snow. And I have my future wife there. And I said, all right, baby, here's what you're going to do. I set up the tripod, put the camera on the tripod. I said, here's how you do it. I said, you keep the horizon straight. You pull the trigger when we're paddling for a wave, and you don't let go of that trigger until A, we kick out of the wave, or the wave breaks on somebody and the board is popped up and rolling in the whitewater. Our first date, she shot some of the best footage, and I'm like, I'm going to marry this girl.
Oh, that's rad.
She shot footage of that our first date in the winter, and she was wearing a leather jacket, jeans, and high heels.
How many women would do that? Probably not many. Yeah.
None. Are you kidding me?
That's crazy. Well, good.
Oh, yeah.
Has she ever tried surfing? Have you got her out there?
She actually has tried surfing. She's boogie boarded, and she's tried surfing, but she's the surf mom, or going to the beach, lugging all the stuff. Now we take the grandkids down. She's bought hook, line, and sinker into the whole beach life up here. And we do have great. I know it seems like we're living on the North Pole. A lot of you guys think that New Hampshire may as well be next to freaking Santa's Lookout, Truth is, we have warm summers, beautiful springs, and beautiful fall. The fall in New England, if you ever come out here, you need to come in September, October, and take it all in. The colors of an autumn in New England are to die for.
Okay, so how'd your son get it, and when did he start surfing?
My son was pushed into a wave at 18 months old. Same with my daughter, was 20. My oldest daughter was 20 months. My oldest daughter surfs. And then my youngest, reluctantly, got out there. But they all love they were always at the beach. So we're always like, I'm so blessed, Mike, that my kids, they've moved out and married and have kids and all, but they all live locally, and we're always meeting at the beach. So we're always, on the holidays, of course, we get together, but we always run into each other on the beach when there's surf.
And is your older daughter still surfing today, or is she kind of?
She's a mother of 3 kids, but she does manage to get out every now and then. Not as much as she used.
And your son, he's everyday kind of guy.
Surfing nonstop. The real deal. Been everywhere. Surfed competitively. We went around
ESA or something?
Surfing ESA up and down the East Coast, going to Hatteras, Jersey, Long Island, you name it, Maine, New Hampshire. We did it all. We did the whole contest scene. He's a great surfer and he loves it. Once you parallel a wave, it either stays with you forever or you just don't get it. If guys that quit surfing, I don't get it either. I'll never understand. I don't get it. But once once that gets in you, all you surfers out there know what we're talking about. Once that's in your blood, that salt water gets in your veins. That becomes part of you, man. You're going to find a way to do that the rest of your life. You're going to lie, cheat, steal, whatever you have to do to get down there. And I know right now you're thinking, we're doing this interview, Mike, but your head is out in the ocean right now. You can't wait till this thing ends up so you can get out of here and paddle out there and catch some waves, brother. And I don't blame you.
I'm watching the wind. I'm watching the trees.
I don't blame you one.
Hey,
oh yeah. So I don't blame you one.
How does New England change surfing wise and just population wise and stuff? Has that made an effect there? Is it crowded there now?
I mean, it's happened everywhere. You know, it's like anywhere. It's like anywhere. But, you know, the ebbs and flows of surfing, you know, you've seen it, you know, in Nova Scotia, or the East Coast, the West Coast, Hawaii, going to Hawaii. I was fortunate to surf in Hawaii before it got really crazy. I was there during some crazy times. I look at photos of Pipe and see what appears to be, to me, 100 guys sit on the reef. You know, and I don't know what possesses someone to say, hey, that looks like fun. You know, let's hit it. I don't get that. I don't get that, but I understand if that's what you've been born into, if that's the only thing you know about it. I mean, we're all seeking that solace of finding those empty waves and finding that Nova Scotia or the Hollister Ranch or wherever. We're all still looking for that. You know, I've just been blessed at my age that I got to live that. And, you know, I just wish that my son and his friends could have experienced that. Though there are times, even today, where you can get it, you can still get it, you can still score.
For sure.
Yeah. Okay, so with COVID, has COVID changed surfing up there? Did you get more surfers due to COVID, getting outdoors and stuff?
They shut down certain beaches here during COVID, and we went when COVID hit.
Like
we
you had to sneak out to surf.
We snuck out to surf. Hardcore surfers are going to find a way to surf. They banned parking. We just found a way to get out there. Wow. The true hardcore surfers during COVID, we went covert, baby. We found a way to get out there. No parking. Oh yeah, we'll park 3 miles away and walk through the snow to get to it. We'll park wherever we have to park to get there. And once you're out in the water, I mean, honestly, you know, I had a state cop pull up to me. My son and his friend were a quarter of a mile out surfing this ledge. You know, one of the peaks up, one of the point breaks up here, out surfing this ledge. And the state cop pulls up and says, "Now, isn't he special?" And I said, "Well, sir, not to be, you know, don't be offended by this, but he's a quarter of a mile out to sea. Him and his friend, and they're social distancing. They're not dropping in on each other, holding hands, taking off on a wave together. You know, you and I are closer than they are. Hey, they're not supposed to be out there." I said, they're not supposed to be out there by whose rules? Who came up with that harebrained, you know, law? Some governor who never got wet in his life? Oh, you know, please. You know, and you know, people will walk. They allowed people to walk along the ocean, but they wouldn't let you paddle out and surf. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, so at least they scored, right?
It was insane.
F the cop, I guess.
They scored. They shut down places. I feel terrible. I feel guilty saying this, but we got to surf some of the best waves, perfect point break waves, because one of our friends owns a house right on the ocean, and we got to park in his driveway and just walk across the street and sneak in and paddle over to the reef and just get these waves. And because people couldn't park because they were ticketing and towing people away. Here we are out there. Some of the best footage I shot, I kept calling it the COVID-19 series. You know, covert. You know, covert 19. I was calling it.
Describe the waves up there. Is it all point breaks? Is it like beach breaks? What is it?
Point breaks, reef breaks.
What's your go-to spot?
Breaks.
You don't have to give the name if you don't want.
Well, my favorite spot, the wall, beach break, right off a sandy beach break, surf off the jetties. And that's not a secret. I'm not going to tell you what the point breaks are, but the truth is, if you can drive by it, it ain't a secret. If you can drive your motor vehicle along the coast and look out and see some waves peeling up, that's not a secret.
Are you guys welcoming the outsiders? So I have a question with that. Go ahead and answer.
It depends. If you show up with, 6 or 7 friends, we're not that happy about it. Yeah, you're invited. You show up by yourself.
No one is.
I mean, it's like guys that show up with a gang full of and then they're all everybody's aggro. I mean, it's like anywhere you go, you got to show respect. Right. You got to respect the locals. When I went to Hawaii every year, I went to Hawaii for every winter. I'd go to Hawaii. You know damn well what that's like. You just got to respect the locals. When Johnny Boy Gomes is out there, you got to respect Johnny Boy.
You surf with Johnny? You got any stories?
Oh my God. So we used to surf Lani's, and we were out one day. The surf was 8 to 12 foot Hawaiian.
That's big.
So you know what that scale is.
That's
You know
big
that
for me.
scale. 8 to 12 foot Hawaiian is
too big for me.
is 12 to 20 foot anywhere else on the frickin' planet except for frickin' Hawaii. 8 to 12 foot. It's like 8 to 12 foot. You know, I'm like, dude, that's like fucking 25 feet, you know? No, brah. You know, I'm like, no, brah, nothing. Anyways, we were out surfing 8 to 12 foot Laniakea, and it was like terrifying, you know, as you can imagine. And so me and two of my friends were out there, these two blonde-haired guys. Now, I used to go to Hawaii because I'm dark-skinned. You know, I'm Italian. I have dark hair. I would even dye my hair darker so it was black. And I would grow a little goatee, and I wore black trunks. So I looked like I came straight out of the Hui, you know? And I would keep my mouth shut out there. I wouldn't talk to anybody. So when my little blonde-haired Holly friends would come over to talk to me, I'd be like, get the frick away from me, man. Paddle away. What are you doing? What are you talking about? Get away from me. I don't want them to think I know you clowns, you know? Anyways, and we're out there one day, and Johnny Boy is out there. It's 8 to 12 feet, Mike. 8 to 12 foot Hawaiian. The sets would come, and if you're familiar with Laniakea, there's that outside takeoff, that middle, and then the bowl on the end. And this massive set is coming. And so we're all paddling for the shoulder. I'm paddling, and my friends Zappy, Mike, Paw, Zappy, and Kevin, we're all paddling. And Zappy paddles out, and he's paddling at an angle, and he feels someone grab his leash, and he thinks it's me. Someone grabbed onto his leash and starts reeling him in, and he starts yelling, "What are you doing, man? What are you doing? What are you doing?" He turns around. It's Johnny Boy Gomes sitting up on his board and reeling Zappy in like he's a fish. He's just reeling him in like he's hauling in a big old mahi, pulling in Zappy. Zappy's screaming and kicking. Meanwhile, this 12-foot Hawaiian, a 12-foot Hawaiian set is looming ahead and coming at every. And Johnny Boy's sitting up on his board, and he's reeling Mikey, and he's reeling Zappy in. Mikey Paw reeling him in like, and like, hey, bro, you fucking paddle in front of me, bro. Huh? You paddle in front of me. And like, what? I'm sorry. And his Johnny Boy pulls him up and holds him there like he's got a little puppy on a leash. Holds him there and lets that set unload on both of them. Johnny Boy let that 12-foot Hawaiian, which was all of 20 feet, frick this, 12-foot Hawaiian. It was 20 feet. It unloaded on Mikey and Johnny Boy. And then later on, he finally lets him go, but he was sitting there scolding him and educating him the Hawaiians, Hawaiian style. And we look back and it was like, oh my God, Johnny Boy let that set, that 12-foot Hawaiian set, unload on them both just to teach Zappy a lesson. Never paddle in front of Johnny Boy. Don't you ever paddle in front of Johnny Boy. And later on, we were sitting on our vehicles, all the boards stacking up, and there goes Johnny Boy. He goes walking by us, and he's snorting like a mad ape, an ape/pig, snorting, going by us. And we're just looking at him, going, "Man, that guy, he's got to lighten up." Anyways, poor Zappy though. Zappy is like, dude, I thought it was you. Like, Zappy, why would I do that? Why would I reel you in like that? What would make you think that I would do that? I was paddling for my life like everybody else.
Right on. That's a great Johnny Boy story right there. Right on.
Yeah. Oh man, he just held him. He just pulled him in and just held him there.
Hey, so in New England, do pros show up and surf there, and you guys are stoked to show them around, or what?
Name a pro, they've been here.
Okay.
They've all been here. I mean, all of them. They come and we have a big night out. There's a couple of spots. There's pizza joints, and I'll show some of my movies, and they'll bring a movie. But everybody from Aki, Tommy Curran, Sean Thompson, Mark Richards, Rabbit, Kelly, everybody. They've all been here. They've all come through Hampton, New Hampshire. Because it's like for the longest time, like I said, we may as well have lived on the North Pole.
Right.
But People realize that there's surf here and there's a thriving surf community. And when there's a thriving surf community, there's money. Money. They'll buy your surfboards. They'll buy your clothing. They'll buy your wetsuits. They'll buy your wax. They'll buy everything you're trying to sell. So there's money here. It's been great. We've had pro after pro, celebrity after celebrity come year in and year out. It's been good.
How many surf shops do you have in town?
We have 4 surf shops.
Really? That many?
Yeah.
Oh shit.
Yep.
Okay. And
we got Zap Sticks, we got Pioneers, Cinnamon Rainbows, and Summer Sessions, all within that little 5-mile square area there.
Okay. What about your movies? So let's talk about your movies. How many movies you made?
I've got 18 DVDs out on surffreeordie.com. Surf Free or Die.
Shit. Okay.
So the motto of New Hampshire is live free or die. That's the motto of New Hampshire.
Okay.
Live free or die. So I come up with Surf Free or Die in 1985. And I've got 18 DVDs and I've got hundreds of videos on my Vimeo page and YouTube. So I make, the little, the truth is, Mike, I'm going to be 71 years old. I make surf movies, not some 20-second TikTok video, I don't make these little snippets. I don't make.
No, just one turn.
Yeah. People, your movies are too long. I'm like, hey, man, I make surf movies, not little TikTok commercials, what I've done,
Okay. So with that being said, how do you present these to the audience, especially non-East Coast audience that want to know where these breaks are so they can go surf there?
I don't really present it. I mean, I'll show it. I mean, the thing is, I don't name a single break. So I do my blog and every week I post photos.
Right.
And the only break that I will name is the wall, because the wall it's like Malibu or Rincon, around here. So everybody knows where the wall is, but I'm not going to name spots or let people know. I mean, I will, I've had some local guys say, hey man, you took a photo of blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, you can drive right by it. Oh, people are going to see it. So they can see it when they drive by it. If I take a photo and if I don't have any landmarks, I have a good friend who lives in Santa Barbara, the Santa Barbara area. He'll send me photos of the ranch. He said, you got to airbrush all the bluffs out, all the landmarks out. I'm like, okay. I understand that. But if I take a photo and there's no landmark, there's no, a bluff or a tree or something that you can drive by and say, oh, I know where that is, it's just the wave itself. There's no harm in that, I've got to live with the guilt that I'm part of the reason why it may be a little bit more crowded because of my weekly blog, my weekly photos, my weekly videos. I have become part of that,
Well, you're the go-to guy for local, shots and video footage? Are you the guy?
I shoot local footage and I shoot local photos and, I post them. But I never say where it is. And if someone will ask me on Instagram, hey man, where is this? It's the Atlantic Ocean. It's in the North Atlantic, it's a damned if you do and damned if you don't, a double-edged sword.
Yeah. I mean, there's waves and they're on the coast. We get that. Are the point breaks lefts or rights? So there's probably set up like a left, right?
Both.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have perfect lefts. We have perfect rights. We have perfect reefs where it breaks both ways. We have insane beach breaks. Insane beach breaks that looks like Hatteras and the never-ending comparison. It's like Pipeline out there. Let me tell you something, idiot. There's nothing like Pipeline except Pipeline. But we do have some hollow waves, and we have some thumping beach break.
So tell me about a left point break. Like, is it like a long left point break? Are we talking just a couple yards, or we're talking 100 yards? Like, what are we talking? Rincon-ish?
Couple hundred yards.
Really?
300. Oh yeah. I caught the longest wave of my life. I'm trying to think of what year it was. It wasn't that long. It was less than 10 years ago, where I went, conservatively speaking, I was riding a retro fish. So it was 4 inches thick. And I was able to make section after section. But I caught a wave. And I don't want to name where it is because it's too fickle for starters. But a couple of guys that would freak out if I even said the name out loud. I went for close to 400 yards. I just kept connecting the dots.
No way.
All the way, yes. And I had a witness. I had a witness who was out there in the water with me. When I kicked out and I looked back, I'm like, oh my God.
Is this a right or a left?
A right.
Okay. All right.
A right. And a woman friend of mine was driving along the coast and she saw me take off and she was driving along and she was slowing down because she didn't know it was me, but she kept looking through these little openings, the sand dunes, and the rock croppings and just, oh my God, whoever that guy is got the longest ride. Here's what I tell people. We have world-class point breaks with unbearable conditions.
Fair. Yeah.
So take the good with the bad,
Yeah.
World-class point break, unbearable conditions.
And are those only working when it's 32 degrees outside, or are those working in the summer?
They work whenever there's a big enough swell. So like I told you, hurricane season. So from hurricane season till, let's say, mid-spring, as long as we're still getting nor'easters, the nor'easters come from, they'll come from April, March, they'll come all winter long, but they'll still be present in April and May. And you might get a rare one in June, July, August. The first part of August is when it shuts down. But then that's hurricane season. And when the hurricanes start moving up the coast, my brother, look at go to my blog, click on my Vimeo tab, and watch Hurricane Larry.
So your blog, let's talk about all that then. Your blog is Ralph's Picks, right?
Ralph's Pick, RALPHS as in Sam, PIC.com. Ralph'sPick.com.
Okay. All right.
Ralph'sPick.com. Just Google.
And then Google you. And then what about social media? What's your social media account? Do you have one on Instagram?
I got an Instagram because if you go to my blog, ralphspick.com, I'm on them all. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. But watch the Hurricane Larry video. That was September. So no boots, no gloves, no hoods, perfect 6 to 8 foot waves.
All right.
That any surfer
be
from
frothing
anywhere.
over?
Oh yeah. We had a couple of guys that came this happened to luck out that were from the North Shore of Oahu. They happened to be in town, and this one guy was just like freaking out. He couldn't believe what he was getting. That's the thing. That's what I love when guys from like California or Australia or the islands, they come here and all of a sudden we get a good swell and their minds are blown. They can't. It's like they've got this preconception in their heads that New England
only half the year,
like Antarctica.
Only half the year.
There's going to be penguins on there's penguins on the beach. Like, no, man, there's no fucking penguins here.
Okay, so let's talk about your blog for a minute. Why do you do the blog? Why'd you start it, and why do you do it?
I have always loved taking photos of surfing. I love painting empty waves. I love making surf movies. I love to write. I love to talk, as you can tell. I like to gab, man. I just spew this shit out, So my fingers do the talking, so I'm able to write these long, elaborate stories every week. And believe it or not, if you've heard of Google Analytics, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Google Analytics. I've been doing the blog for 18 years. I have over 300,000 weekly readers around the globe. I have people in Hanoi, North Vietnam, reading my blog. If you were to tell me back in 1969, when I was standing on the goddamn DMZ, looking into North Vietnam, that someday, Ralph, those people up there are going to be reading your blog and looking at your surf photos, I would have said you're out of your freaking mind. I've got people in Iran reading my blog, and every state in the country. It's unbelievable, and it just kind of. And I don't advertise. It just became like this underground word of mouth type thing. I've got friends turn people on to it, and now with your podcast, Sarah, someone's going to tap into it. Ralph'sPick.com. And so it grew.
And is it a passion, a love passion?
I love surfing so much. I love empty waves so much. I love making movies. I love the mechanics of a wave. I could sit there and at my age and having seen a million, maybe more than a million empty waves peeling off. I never get tired of that. I shall never get tired of seeing a perfect wave breaking, whether it's a beach break, a reef break, or a point break. I will never tire of that. And if some of my friends can drop into a perfect wave and get barreled out of their mind, and I can capture that on film, man.
That's rad. That's rad.
Come on.
What about you and surfing? Are you going to surf? You have any plans of at a certain age you're going to stop, or are you just going to go full blast?
No. I've stopped surfing in the dead of winter. The older you get, the colder you get,
That's probably true.
It's like, I just can't. It is true. I'm telling you that, our winters are unforgiving. They're unforgiving. Though I will tell you this, and this is the absolute truth. It is colder standing with today's technology of the 5.4s and the sealed, wrists and ankles and the boots and 7mm boots and gloves and, the hoods. I am colder standing on the beach on those icy rocks and 2 feet of snow shooting to my friends than they are out there surfing. I guarantee you, I am freaking colder. I got, on January 4th this year, it was 3 degrees. 3 degrees. 1, 2, 3. That's as high as it got. With a wind chill factor, with a wind chill factor of 15 below. And I was standing out there shooting the surf that day with the sea smoke. It looked like the ocean was on fire. It was just rippling sea smoke. My son was calling me. So I had to go through my jacket, my sweatshirt, my woolen shirt, reach into my pocket and pull it out. And I made the mistake of taking my glove off. And within seconds, I didn't get frostbite. I got frost nip. So my hands went like they turned into clubs. And I couldn't operate my cameras. I literally stuck my hands into my crotch. So my gonads could keep my hands warm. My gonads saved my hands, Mike.
Okay, how many guys are out there on a 3-degree day? Can't be many.
No, there were.
How many?
There
5, 10?
The first. When I first got there, it was like brutal.
It
was brutal. But there was 2 guys. Oh yeah, it was insane. It was stupid.
Yeah.
It was freaking stupid.
Yeah.
And then there were 2 guys out. But there's something magical about watching a guy take off and the ocean's on fire. It's just like literally, the sea smoke. It's just like rippling. And it's just like. Where do you see that? You don't see.
I've never seen
that at Rincon, baby. You're not going to see that at Malibu. You're not going to see that with Johnny Boy Gomes at Lania Carey, 8 to 12-foot Hawaiian. You ain't going to see that shit out there, Johnny. You got to come here and see it for real. And so there's something magical about that. It's just so there was like a handful of guys. By the end of the day, there were between 20 and 30 guys had come and gone. And then the beach breaks. They surfed the beach breaks during that shit too. So duck diving is the last thing you want to do in the dead of winter.
Make me cold.
Exactly. Oh, it's right. That's why homie don't play that game no more. Homie's not going to be duck diving at 71 years old, and when it's only 35-degree water temp and 15 below zero wind chill factor. Homie is not doing that shit no more. Homie's going to wait till it gets
What's
warm.
your quiver like now? How many boards you got, and what are you riding?
I mostly ride a longboard, but I when I turned 70 last summer, I got a board that was under 9 feet. I got an 8'7", kind of a fun shape, and I've got my days of riding a shortboard are behind me. The first thing that goes for you guys out there that are wondering, is you guys in your 40s and early 50s are wondering what's the first thing to go. It's that getting to your feet part, that springing to your feet. You think you can drop in behind the peak on a big wedging peak that's gonna just throw out? No, that shit's gonna leave you. You're gonna get to your feet when your face hits the sand. That's when you get to the feet. When you get older, you just gotta kind of work your way to back and getting up again. I mean, I work out constantly so I can get to my feet, but that's the first thing that goes is that snap to your feet and placing yourself, because it's nature and it's gravity, you know.
When did you realize that was going away? Was it one session or was it over a period of time?
You know, I remember being in my 40s, and a friend of mine who was in his late 50s, he said to me, first thing that goes is snapping, getting to your feet. I'm like, really? He said, yeah, the getting to your feet part. And sure enough, and then for us, if you're wearing a heavy wetsuit, and you're trying to get to your feet and your toe kind of drags and you drags over and your toe kind of bends over. And so it was just a gradual thing. But on a nice summer day, I can go out on a longboard, a 9 foot longboard, and drop into some 3 to 5 foot waves and surf a point break at my age, and still with a handful of friends.
Okay.
So that kind of gone full circle as far as, when I first started out on a longboard and end up on a longboard. Or better yet, here's the real deal. We all start off as kooks and we all end up as kooks.
That's what I'm hearing, yeah. I don't know. The generations now that people are surfing into their 70s and 80s, that's insane.
Yeah.
When you were surfing in the 60s, would you think you would see a 7-year-old out there surfing?
No.
Never.
Not then.
Yeah.
Not back then.
It was a young man's game.
Yeah. But I mean, today, it's not uncommon to see guys in their 70s. I've got friends that still, that are in their 70s that, that go to Tavarua and surf cloud break, in their 72 years old. I'm like, dude, man, that's crazy.
Insane.
But guys in Hawaii, those old guys, that just surf till they can't surf anymore. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to be dropping in Tavarua or, any of those, I'm not going to be paddling out at Pipeline or anything, but I will be down the street at my home break and dropping into a 3 to 5 foot glassy swell and just hope. And the thing that I can do, I still can do. And it was the thing that I was never one I was never a great surfer. I mean, I was never a big wave surfer. I've been out in big waves, but I'm not a big wave surfer. And I don't punch airs, or do 360s. I've never done that. But I'm a conservative. I can drop in, do a bottom turn, do a nice, make a nice carve. But my forte, the one thing that I've always been able to do, and I can still do it, and I did it on Thanksgiving, is get inside the barrel. So I've figured out a way that I can still get barreled. I mean, even if it's on a small, head high wave, glassy wave, I can still pull into a wave and go and had that same sensation that I felt back in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s. I can still do that. And
at the end of the day, that's all that matters, really, right?
If you can still get barreled in your 70s and going into your 80s, shit. Yeah.
And then how many boards do you have? Or how many boards do you like own?
I mean, I've got about 10, 12 boards, but 3
one go-to
boards. I still kept my short boards just because I like to touch them and look at them and remember what it was like when you were younger, when you could actually do that. And I've got photos of me surfing, some decent sized waves. So I've never really been one to get rid of my boards. I have a emotional tie to each board, and each board has been special to me. Then most of my boards are custom boards. So, but each board has been special every step of the way. So they're all there for me to look at and, hold on to. I'll give them to my son or my daughter someday, or my,
Then you said your favorite guitar player was Hendrix. Who would be your favorite surfer? Do you have one? Or is there different generations, different guys?
My favorite surfer of all time is Sean Thompson.
Yeah.
Really? Okay. You ever talk to him?
Oh, yeah. I hung out with Sean when he came here,
Oh, okay.
Now,
Cool.
I have footage of Sean Thompson in 1975 at Pipe during the free ride, the movie Free Ride.
Yep.
I shot footage of Sean at Pipe. Sean, PT, Rabbit, all those guys, Jackie Dunn. And so Sean has been like trying to get me to convert that movie, the footage I shot to get it to him. And I never got around to doing that, but it's the same stuff. Free ride movie,
Same period. Yeah. That's rad. So are you going to ever convert those? Get those out there?
Yeah, I'm going to do that.
Eventually?
I've got some footage. I don't even know who it is, but in 1971 in Baja, I shot some of the guys on these little fishes, these like little 6-foot fishes, and they would like just killing it. They had to have been somebody because they were surfing circles around everybody that was out there. These two guys, and one guy looked like George Greeno, but they were stand-up surfers. I don't know who they were, but they could surf. I've got footage from California, Hawaii. I've got footage. I mean, I'm talking about movies, not video, actual movies,
Okay.
So I've been shooting for a long, long, long time. I've got, if I could show you, I got stacks and stacks of reel-to-reel movies of footage back from the 60s to whenever I converted over to video.
Okay. Yeah. So you got a heavy archive. Really? Yeah, that's rad.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I do. So I'm going to make,
what about those hidden breaks? Are you going to
release those?
I'm going to make a documentary on New Hampshire. And I'm just, I'm going to call it Surf Free or Die. I'm using my company's name, Surf Free or Die. The history of surfing of New Hampshire.
Have you started that process yet?
I have. Yes, I have.
Okay, cool. How far away out are we out?
I'm just archiving all the old footage I have. I'm going to be interviewing people, and just going. So everything, and it'll be an original soundtrack. So I won't have to deal with anybody trying to get copyright permission. So it'll be an original soundtrack, and it'll be footage from back that no one's ever seen before, and then right up to the current stuff.
That's rad.
Yep. Surf Free or Die. The true story.
You got to make sure you get a hold of me before that. I'll see you'll advertise it on your blog.
Oh yeah, right? Absolutely. Yeah.
Perfect. All right, dude. Thank you so much for doing this interview. This is like one of my funnest I've done.
It was great, man. It was great. I'm glad we connected.
Yeah, totally. Thank you for saying yes. I really appreciate it.
And I'll keep you posted. We'll stay in touch. I'll let you know when things are coming up, and meanwhile, you can check on my blog every week and find out what's going on. I have a disclaimer because, believe it or not, I've pissed a few people off here and there. I've made some people upset, and so I have a disclaimer on my blog. And I always tell people that if you don't like what I wrote, don't read it. Just look at the goddamn pictures.
You got any final words?
Surfing heals all wounds. If you're in a bad place, go surfing. If something's got you down, man, if you're in a dark place and things aren't going right, your girlfriend, your wife, your job, or whatever, man, go surfing. And surfing heals all wounds. And that's the truth. It saved my life. It could save your life.
That's good words. Thank you, Ralph. All right, everybody, this is Mike and Ralph. We're signing off, and have a good one. Later. Woo. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Please follow us on Instagram and follow us on your favorite podcast platform. And do me a favor and tell a friend that QuiverCast is back. I'd like to thank Glue Factory and Dave Hegstrom for the music. And I'll see you on the lineup.
Are you ready?
so. Hey, you guys, Endless Summer box set. This thing is legit. It's authentic, numbered certificate in it. It has a 5-frame film strip from the original print. You literally own a piece of history. It has a specially minted bronze medallion. Dude, that thing's sick. Okay, there's so much more here. Go to the show notes. There's a link on there. Go check this piece of history out. This thing's rad. Seriously. Smithsonian American History Museum has it. It took 4 years of research with 3.5 in production, all hand assembled. This thing's rad. So much to this awesome box set. Remastered DVD, sharper images than the original film, but dude, this thing's so sick. Link in the show notes.